Hello everyone, I am Daniel. And today I am going to be reading the Minecraft story mode fanfiction, Purple Eyes of Despise, because Jack will be in America for 2 weeks at the time of this recording. He's given me the opportunity to give you all a silly little shit post in his absence, whatever that means. And speaking of Jack, it's his birthday today, so Jackie boy, if you're watching this, which I doubt you are lol, happy birthday to ya mate. But anyway, regarding the fanfiction that I am about to read, allow me to read out the synopsis to you first. At the end of episode 3, Gabriel didn't make it to Jesse in time. Now everyone are dying one by one. Petra is the only one left capable enough to defeat the Witherstorms. But can she cope with the rumored death of Jesse? Or will she have to fight the man in red suspenders? Rated T for violent character death. Considering Petra's with the sickness is pretty much at its worst in episode 4, I can only imagine how having her defeat the Witherstorms is going to play out. But whatever, let's just stop delaying the inevitable for 5 centuries and actually get on with the fanfic. Purple Eyes of Despise, by Atomic 404, read by the boring monotone robot voice Daniel. Author's note. The beginning of this chapter starts at around the ending of episode 3, so if you haven't gotten that far yet, I suggest you wait to read this fanfiction. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. This fanfic has spoiler central written all over it. Chapter 1. He ran away. There's nothing more. The command block was activating again, and Jesse was right in the way of it. Guys, over here yelled Jesse as the command block started to suck him up. He couldn't stop it. It was too powerful. Ruben, take the amulet and give it to the others, exclaimed Jesse as he threw the amulet to Ruben. Ruben didn't want to leave his best friend behind, but it's what Jesse wanted. So he ran as fast as his stubby little legs could go and ran out of the not so dead body of the Witherstorm. Jesse, where are you? Yelled Axel right near the danger zone of the Witherstorm. At the corner of his eye, he saw Ruben run out of the storm holding the amulet in his mouth. Ruben, where's Jesse? Asked Axel as Ruben ran over to him. Oink, replied Ruben. Jesse's dead, exclaimed Axel. Jesse's what? Said Petra as she limped her way over there. No. He's not dead. He gave the amulet to Ruben and told him that he was going to go another way and would meet up with us later, lied Axel. He didn't want to upset Petra, for he knew how much she loved him. I don't want to believe you, but I don't want to believe he was dead, replied Petra. A few seconds later, Lucas and Olivia ran over there with Soren and Magnus close behind. We have to get out of here, exclaimed Lucas. What about Jesse? Where is he? Asked Olivia, looking at her surroundings to see if she could find him. He'll have to catch up later, exclaimed Soren. A flaming with a skull blasted right next to them, and that was a sign that they had to get out of there, with or without Jesse. Soren was running when he looked back to see Endermen walking around near the Witherstorms. What are those Endermen doing? They're going the wrong way, he exclaimed. Soren, what are you doing? Questioned Lucas, stopping in his tracks to grab Soren. Those Endermen are in the Witherstorm's way. They'll be killed. Every second you stand there is risking our lives. Now get out of here. Soren didn't listen to him and still stood there. So Lucas grabbed his arm and started dragging him across the ground. After a few minutes of running around trying to escape, Petra was getting too weak to run and fell to the ground. Axel, yelled Petra as she saw him run past. He immediately turned around and helped her up. Lucas turned around and saw that they were falling behind. Olivia, they're falling behind, exclaimed Lucas as he saw Olivia run by. Come on Axel, yelled Olivia. She's too sick. This is the best we can do, replied Axel. They're not gonna be able to outrun it, not on foot, exclaimed Lucas. Look, horses, exclaimed Olivia, pointing to a bunch of horses running past. They all jumped onto the horses, Olivia and Axel on one, Soren and Magnus on another, Lucas on another horse, and Petra attempting to get on one. Petra, get on mine. You can just hold on, exclaimed Lucas as he saw Petra struggling. She slowly climbed on and they were off. They all eventually made it to safety. The whole horse ride, Petra was thinking about Jesse. Petra wasn't very gullible, so she didn't believe Axel, but she didn't want Jesse to be dead. They found a cave at a safe distance from the Witherstorm. Lucas, Olivia, Soren, Magnus, "Can I talk to you guys privately?" asked Axel. "What about Petra?" asked Lucas. "I don't want her to hear this," replied Axel. They all walked outside the cave so Axel can tell them the news of what happened to Jesse. Inside the cave, Petra was leaning against a wall, thinking about Jesse. She was curious of what they were all talking about outside, so she limped her way over to the entrance of the cave. "So I don't want any of you to tell Petra," said Axel. "Tell me what?" asked Petra. She knew what they were talking about, but she didn't know for sure. "Nothing. We weren't talking about anything," said Lucas. "Jesse's dead, isn't he?" exclaimed Petra. "No, he's not," said Axel. "Don't you lie to me. I know when someone's lying or not." She started to walk out there to yell at them face to face, but she was too weak and was starting to feel dizzy, so she ended up falling to the ground. "Petra, are you alright?" asked Axel as he came to pick her up and bring her back inside. "What happened to Jesse? I need to know," said Petra in a very faint voice followed by coughing. "Nothing happened to him. He's fine," said Olivia following them in. "Yeah, 'cause if he was dead, then I would be king of Boomtown again. And I'm not," said Magnus following them as well. "Look, maybe you should rest for a little while," said Lucas, also following them. "No, I want to help destroy the Witherstorm," replied Petra. "You're too weak. You can barely lift a sword, let alone destroy a Witherstorm," said Axel, putting her down in a corner next to Ruben. A few seconds later Soren walked in with Ivar following close behind. "Ivar," said Magnus. This is all your fault," exclaimed Axel. "Calm down. He's here to help us," said Soren. "I know how to destroy the Witherstorms," said Ivar. After a few minutes of strategizing their attack, Ivar, Soren and Olivia went to head for the Farlands, and Axel and Magnus went to lure the Witherstorms to Soren's temple using the amulet, and Lucas staying behind to look after Petra and Ruben. "Lucas, please tell me what happened to Jesse," said Petra after a long nap. "Don't tell Axel I told you, but Jesse's dead," said Lucas. "I knew it," said Petra. She tried hard not to cry. Ruben, seeing that Petra was upset, came and curled up next to her. She just wished that she was strong enough to help. Chapter 2, Minion. Jesse woke up. He was no longer wearing Elagard's armor, but he was back in his old white shirt, blue jeans, and red suspenders. He was in the crater the Witherstorms left behind. There was something different about him. He looked down at his hands to see that his hands down to his wrists were pitch black, and his face around where his eyes were was also pitch black, and his eyes were glowing purple. He tried to climb out of the crater, but he started slipping, but then someone grabbed onto his arm. "Gabriel," said Jesse as he looked up to see who it was. "Who's Gabriel?" asked Gabriel. He had amnesia. All of a sudden Jesse started to smile and grabbed onto Gabriel's arm. All of a sudden, Gabriel's arm was turning purple, like Petra's arm. Jesse was infecting him with wither sickness. The longer Jesse held his arm, the worse it got, until Gabriel died. "What is this power?" asked Jesse. "I like it. Thank you command block for giving me this power. I'm no longer Jesse, I'm Wither Jesse, and I know who I'm going to kill next." Wither Jesse was now the Witherstorm's minion and would do all he could to stop someone from killing them, even if he had to kill his best friends. He searched Gabriel's body to see if he could find anything useful. He found underneath his gauntlets a pair of leather gloves which would be useful for touching living things. He was ready to go, and the first thing he would do is stop his friends from destroying the Witherstorms. He set out to find them, ready to do anything. "I'll kill them all," he mumbled to himself. Every single one of them. The old Jesse was gone. Forever. After a few hours of walking, Wither Jesse came across 3 people on horses. He went closer to them but tried to stay out of sight. After a few minutes of following them, he realized who they were. "How long until we get to the Farlands?" Wither Jesse overheard Olivia asking. "Not much further," replied Ivar. Wither Jesse smiled at the sight. He jumped down from the small hillside he was hiding on and jumped in front of the 3. "Jesse," said Olivia, surprised that her best friend was still alive. "Well, this is wonderful news," said Soren, pleased to see him. Wither Jesse didn't answer them. He only smiled more and raised his sword. "Hey Jesse, are you okay?" asked Olivia, seeing his abnormal behavior. I've never felt better, he answered, getting ready to charge at them. Ivor was aware of what was going on with Jesse and prepared a potion in his hand. Wither Jesse then ran at them and stabbed Sorin's horse right in the chest, killing the horse and knocking Sorin off. Ivor then threw a potion of weakness at Wither Jesse, but it only strengthened him. He then jumped up and stabbed Ivor in the arm and then turned to Sorin and cut his head clean off. He turned to Olivia, who was slowly backing up on her horse. Wither Jesse walked up to the horse and cut its head off with one swipe of his sword, making Olivia fall off. "Jesse, what's wrong with you?" exclaimed Olivia, backing up on the ground. "Jesse's gone. I'm with the Jesse now," he said. He then lifted up his sword and stabbed Olivia in the chest and left her there to die. He turned round to continue with Ivor, but he seemed to have ran off. Wither Jesse enjoyed slaughtering his friends and set off to find the others. After hours of walking and killing, he finally found 2 more people on horses, Magnus and Axel. Once again, he tried his hardest to stay out of sight. He hid behind a tree and pulled out his bow and shot an arrow straight into Magnus's arm, knocking him off his horse. Unaware of what was going on, Axel jumped off his horse and ran over to Magnus and tried to pull out the arrow. Seeing this foolish move of Axel, Wither Jesse ran down there and quietly killed both horses. Axel then turned around with the feeling of being watched. "Jesse," exclaimed Axel, not even noticing that both horses were dead. Axel then jumped up and gave Wither Jesse a big hug. "Axel, you know better than to just hug an enemy," said Jesse, with his sword at the ready. "Wait, what do you mean enemy?" asked Axel, releasing Wither Jesse from his suffocating hug. Not given enough time to react, Wither Jesse sliced off Axel's right arm. "What was that for?" exclaimed Axel, trying to hold in his tears. With all his strength, Magnus jumped on top of Wither Jesse and tried to tackle him. Wither Jesse slid his glove off and grabbed the top of Magnus's head. With Magnus weakened, Wither Jesse pushed him off of him and left him there to die. He turned around to see that Axel had also ran away like Ivor did. "That damn idiot ain't gonna get far," said Wither Jesse once he stopped that Axel was missing. With them gone, the only ones left to kill were Lucas and Petra. A chill went up Wither Jesse's spine at the thought of killing Petra. He wanted to kill her, but at the same time, he didn't. Either way, he still needed to find them. Started to walk until someone spoke up from the ground. "Don't leave me here. The wither storms are coming. Don't leave me here to die," begged Magnus, the arrow still in his arm and dying from wither sickness. "You're no hero, Magnus. You're a coward," said Wither Jesse. "What if I am? And it's not like you would know what a hero is," threatened Magnus, still on the ground. Wither Jesse just stood there, thinking about that statement. "It's not like you would know what a hero is." Wither Jesse clenched his fist with fear and anger. He turned around and sliced his head off. "That should keep you quiet," he mumbled as he put his sword away. With the statement still haunting him, Wither Jesse set off again to find the last 2. Chapter 3. I Need You. She was walking along the rooftops trying to avoid the monsters of the night when she heard screaming coming from one of the house's backyard. She ran to see what was happening, and what she was a young boy, who didn't seem too much younger than her, cornered in their backyard by zombies. "Help," the boy was screaming. She just couldn't watch the boy like this, so she jumped down into the backyard and pulled out her wooden sword and killed the zombies like she had been killing for years. She put her sword away and turned to the boy, who was trembling in fear. "Are you alright?" she asked the boy. "Why yeah," he said. My name's Jesse. What's your name?" "I'm Petra," she replied. "Cool beans," said Jesse in a very pleasant tone. "Let's get you inside," said Petra, walking towards the back door. Jesse followed close behind. They opened the door to be met with a human form of the Wither Storm. Petra tried to pull out her sword, but her arms wouldn't obey her. Jesse walked up in front of her and turned to look at her. His face was filled with sorrow. The Wither Storm's tentacle arms wrapped themselves around Jesse and started to drag him away. Petra fell to her hands and knees. Tears turned to blood as they poured down her face. "No," she yelled. "Don't leave me. I need you. Don't leave me, please." Something grabbed her from behind and cut her left arm off. Petra awoke from her dream with her heart racing and tears streaming down her face. She was still in the corner of the cave with Ruben fast asleep next to her. She silently put her head in between her legs and started to cry. "Hey Petra, you doing okay?" asked a familiar voice. "Hey Lucas," said Petra. Not raising her head, Lucas went and sat down next to her. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing. I'm fine," she replied, raising her head from her legs. "You've said that enough times for me to tell you're lying," said Lucas with a forced smile. "I'm fine." "Really, Petra, you're obviously not fine." Once Lucas finished saying that, he heard a noise coming from the outside of the cave. He got up and walked out the entrance and looked around. All of a sudden, an arrow flew into the front of his left shoulder. He fell to the ground from the impact. Someone jumped down from on top of the hill the cave was protruding from. "Jesse?" said a startled Lucas. Jesse walked over to Lucas and put his foot on his face and stabbed an old stone sword he found into his hand. He then took his foot off his face and walked into the cave. He stepped out the cave for a second and decided to put his sword away. He figured since Petra already has wither sickness, he should infect her further. It's half the work. He walked back into the cave and turned a corner to see Petra sitting across the cave, her head in her legs again. Jesse started to blush as he saw her. He then pulled his left glove off. "This is going to be easier," he mumbled. Petra heard him and raised her head. Her eyes widened to the sight. "Jesse!" she exclaimed, struggling to get up. With all her strength, she ran up to Jesse and gave him a giant hug. Jesse was very surprised by this action. Petra never usually acted like this. Jesse was starting to blush even more. He could feel her crying in his chest. "I thought you were dead. I missed you," said Petra, burying her face in Jesse's chest. I missed you too," he lied, carefully pulling his glove back on. "Jesse, I love you," she said, taking her face out of his chest and looked him in the eye. Jesse was starting to sweat. Petra raised her head up and was about to kiss him. Skin contact could kill her. Jesse raised his covered hand and pushed her head away from his lips. He then put his other hand behind his back and pulled out his gold sword. He tried to raise it into Petra's vision but he couldn't. "Petra, don't touch him," exclaimed a familiar voice. Jesse turned around to see a bleeding Lucas standing behind him. Jesse pushed Petra to the ground thinking she would get in the way. He pulled his sword out in front of him. He charged at Lucas who was able to dodge but fell to the ground in the process. Jesse then grabbed Lucas by the shirt and lifted him up and pushed him against the cave wall. He then forced his sword onto his throat, but not close enough to cut his skin. "Jesse, stop it," Petra yelled from the cave floor. At her command, he stopped and let Lucas drop to the floor. Ruben then woke up from all the noise and ran straight to Jesse. He started stroking his head against his leg. Jesse didn't enjoy the affection and kicked Ruben. "Oink." Ruben squealed in pain from the force of the kick. "Damn pig," Jesse mumbled to himself. Seeing these cruel acts of him, Petra just realized Jesse's glowing purple eyes, the blackness smudged across his face, and the blood stains on his shirt. "Get out of here, you jerkwad, or I'll kill you," screamed Lucas at the top of his lungs. "You can't kill me, and even if you could, you wouldn't," Jesse replied. "Both of you just shut up," yelled Petra, cradling the hurt pig. Jesse turned around to see tears starting to form in her eyes again. Guilt. That emotion was one Jesse hadn't felt since he woke up, but for some reason he felt it. There was silence for a long while. Jesse couldn't cope with what was happening and punched himself in the stomach. He then forced himself to leave, leaving a shocked Lucas laying against the cave and wall and tearing up Petra in the middle of the ground. When Jesse was outside, he fell to the ground on his hands and knees. After a while of just laying there, he got up and headed towards where the wither storms were. "I need more power. I need more strength," he muttered to himself while walking. "I need more strength to kill." Petra had no idea what had just happened, but she didn't like it. She carefully put Ruben down and crawled over to Lucas. "Are you okay?" she asked, putting her hands on Lucas's shoulders. "I'm fine," he replied. With all the strength she had, which wasn't much, she pulled out the arrow in Lucas's shoulder. "Ah!" he yelled. It was really stuck in there. "Petra!" "Lucas!" Yells could be heard from outside. Petra limped outside to see a worn-out dying Axel standing there, blood dripping out of what was left of his arm, and Ivor close behind him. Chapter 4. The Final Plan. They stood staring at each other for about a minute until Axel stepped forward. "Are you alright? Are you hurt?" he asked while scanning Petra up and down to check for injuries. "Cough." Besides my wither sickness, I'm fine. But what happened to you? She replied. Did Wither Jessa come here? Asked Axel, completely ignoring Petra's question. Who? Hello. I'm sitting on the floor with an arrow in my shoulder. You gonna help or not? Exclaimed a voice from inside the cave. Oh crap. Almost forgot about Lucas, said Petra. Why don't we talk inside then, instead of out in plain sight, said Iva. They then all walked inside. Axel sat down against the wall next to Lucas. What happened to you? He asked. Jesse attacked me. What happened to you? Replied Lucas. Same. Now that we're somewhere we can rest, here's a potion of health, said Iva while passing a potion bottle to Axel. He then walked over to Lucas and pulled the arrow out of his shoulder. Ah! He yelled from the pain. Seeing her friends in pain because of Jesse and the others not showing up made Petra's heart start to speed up its beating. So what happened to the others? She questioned. Dead, replied Iva while bandaging up Lucas's arm. How? Petra asked. You better sit down. It's a long story, said Axel. Petra carefully sat down on the ground. Axel was the first to speak. Magnus and I were on our way to Sorin's temple when an arrow came out of nowhere and hit Magnus in the arm. Then when I got off my horse to see if he was okay, Jesse appears. I gave him a hug and then he said something like you know better than to hug the enemy, so I let go of him and then he cut my arm off. He would have finished me off if it weren't for Magnus jumping on top of him. But Jesse pulled a glove off and then grabbed the top of Magnus's head and then all of a sudden, the same mark on your arm started to appear. I ran away thinking if I stayed, something worse was going to happen. I was able to make it to Sorin's temple and throw the amulet down there, but I lost a lot of blood and almost died. Then Iva showed up and gave me a golden apple to help with my arm and then he explained what he thinks may have happened. When he finished I realized you might be next to die, so we rushed back here. What about your party, Iva? What happened to them? Asked Lucas. We were on our way to the far lands. Not that far from it even. Then Jesse jumped down from a nearby hill and jumped in front of us. We all thought he was dead, so it was quite a surprise. Olivia was the first to speak to him. Then Sorin spoke up. I knew something was up with him, judging by the black smudge on his face and his glowing purple eyes. He spoke a few words then charged at Sorin's horse, stabbing it in the chest and killing it. I threw a weakness potion at him, but it only made him stronger. More evidence to support my theory. He then stabbed me in the arm, but luckily I was able to patch it up quite quickly afterwards. He then killed with no mercy Sorin and Olivia. I ran as fast as I could to the far lands and crafted the weapon we needed to kill the wither storms. On my way back here I found Axel lying on the ground, so I gave him a golden apple to help him and then I explained my theory after he told me what happened to his group. So what's the theory? Asked Petra, her heart beating faster and faster knowing that her crush would do such things to his best friends. When Jesse was supposedly killed by the command block, it fused his DNA with the codes for the wither storms, turning him into a walking killing machine. Fusing his DNA also gave him the ability to infect people with wither sickness. I gave him the name Wither Jesse as well. I think if we destroy the command block, it will release the codes from his body, turning him back to normal, answered Iva. Since I'm the most capable, I will go into the main wither storm and you three will build something to help me up there. He didn't kill me, even when he had the chance, said Petra. He must still remember you well then, replied Iva. What are we waiting for? Let's go, exclaimed Lucas trying to get up. Yeah, we can't just sit around here. We gotta help with Jesse, exclaimed Axel trying to stand up as well. Oink, exclaimed Ruben, walking over to the group. They then all looked over to Petra who was still sitting on the ground. I'm with you guys on this. I just need some help up, she said looking down, embarrassed to have to ask for help. Axel then lent a helping hand down to help her up. She took the hand and Axel pulled her up. It'll only take a few minutes on foot to get to Sorin's temple, said Iva while walking out the cave entrance. They all followed behind him, ready to face the wither storms once again and hopefully the last time. After about 10 to 15 minutes of walking, they all made it to Sorin's temple to find it all almost at bedrock level. The Endermen. They're not angry enough, Axel pointed out. Then go make them angry. That's like one of your specialties, replied Lucas. Axel nodded then ran off towards the Endermen. You two, get somewhere near the main wither storm and start building something to blast me into it. exclaimed Ivor. All of a sudden someone jumped in front of Ivor. It was Wither Jesse and he had his sword out ready to kill. Ivor then kicked Wither Jesse down but he shot straight back up and started to tackle Ivor to the ground. And then started to slice a cut down his back. "One of you, take this enchanted sword. Destroy the command block," he yelled, and with that said, he threw the enchanted sword to them. Lucas then picked it up. "Lucas, let me do it. Let me go into the Wither Storm," said Petra, putting her hand on the handle of the sword. "Okay," Lucas replied. Wither Jesse then started stabbing Ivor all over his back. His screams of pain was a sign to run for it, into more danger. As they ran to find a clear view of the main storm, Petra's Wither sickness was getting worse and took the majority of her strength, making her collapse on the ground. Hearing the sound of her falling, Lucas turned around to see her in pain on the ground. "Petra, are you okay?" he asked, running over to her. She didn't answer. "Petra?" he repeated. This time she did answer, with coughing up blood. "I'm fine," she then said. "You sure? I mean, you're coughing up blood," exclaimed Lucas. "I'm fine. I just need some help up." Lucas held out his hand and pulled Petra up. "Are you sure you want to do this? I can do it for you if you want," he asked. "I've never thought twice about anything in my life. What makes you think I'm going to think twice about saving the world and freeing my best friend now?" was Petra's reply. Lucas couldn't think of anything to say so he just nodded his head and they continued to find a good spot. They eventually found Axel, who had already started building a minecart ramp. They made a hole, he yelled while pointing at a massive hole in the main storm. Lucas ran over to help with building the ramp while Petra checked on her left arm for it was in agony. She unraveled her arm guard to find a not very good sight. Purple veins were almost entirely covering her arm and her skin was starting to rot. She decided to ignore it for now knowing it'll all be over soon. "It's almost finished, Petra," exclaimed Lucas. "Wait, what happened to Ivor?" asked Axel, putting the finishing touches on the ramp. "Wither Jesse got him," replied Lucas. Axel put down the minecart and Lucas signaled for Petra to jump in. She limped her way over to it and pulled herself in. "Like the TNT, Axel," exclaimed Lucas. "I need to place it first," he replied. All of a sudden, Wither Jesse jumped down next to the ramp, fresh blood covering his clothes. "Like the damn TNT," Lucas yelled. Wither Jesse looked up at the hole in the Wither Storm and then back at Petra. "I'll see you up there," he said. Then he ran off towards a tractor beam. This made Petra even more scared than she was before. But she knew she had to do it. The TNT was then lit and the minecart was blasted off towards the hole. And once she's in, there's no turning back. Chapter 5. Goodbye and farewell. Pain. Absolute pain was stretching through Petra's stomach. As she tried to get up, vomit started to spill uncontrollably from her mouth. She looked down to see that she had landed on top of a pile of very sharp flint and one piece had dug into her and stabbed her in the stomach. She tried to pull it out, but stopped when she realized it was stopping most of her blood from spilling out. She dragged herself over to a wooden block that she used to pull herself up. The pain from the flint was agonizing, but she still ignored it. "At least it's not as bad as my wither sickness," she mumbled to herself. As she got up, she turned around to find glowing purple eyes coming from every direction. The eyes of innocent citizens turned to stone. The eyes, as well as the environment, scared the heck out of her. She limped forward only to be knocked down again for the entire stomach of the Wither Storm was turning sideways. She landed in front of a stone citizen. Her heart was beating faster and faster every second she was there. She pulled herself up again and limped on forward. The ground started to shake again. Petra ran as far forward as her weakened body could take, but she ended up falling down anyways. She looked up to see that she had landed right in front of the command block, the thing she seeks to destroy. She pulled herself up on the podium the block stood on and pulled out the enchanted diamond sword. She swung it backwards and then back at the block, hitting it and making a massive crack in it. She swung back again and right before impact, something flew towards her and landed on top of her severely damaged body. She looked dead in the eyes at the force that pushed her down and, like he promised, Wither Jesse was there. He seemed different, more determined to kill. He didn't move. He just laid on top of her, staring at her with a menacing smile on his blood-covered face. She crawled backwards on her back to get away from him. She then pulled herself up once again and turned around to see that Wither Jesse was slowly walking towards her. Knowing that she wasn't strong enough to neither fight nor run, she decided to talk to him. "Jesse, I know you're still in there. You have to listen to me," she said. "I'm all ears," he replied, sweat starting to cover his face. "I'm doing this for you. Please understand that." This time Wither Jesse didn't say anything. He only charged at her with his sword out ready to stab her. This time, it didn't seem that he was going to spare her life. Petra leaped away from him, allowing his sword to go straight through the block she was leaning on. With his sword stuck in the block, Petra limped as fast as she could over to the command block and hit it again with her sword. All of a sudden, the wither tentacles surrounding the block came to life and started flailing around. "Leave the girl to me," yelled Wither Jesse, walking over to Petra. After that, the tentacles fell to the ground like they were just killed. All of a sudden, the Wither Storm's stomach started to turn again. This time all the way around so that the command block was on the ceiling. Petra just couldn't take the pain. But Wither Jesse charging at her again forced her to get back on her feet and try and figure out a way to get to the command block. As the piece of flint dug in further, plus her with the sickness getting worse, moving around was getting a lot harder and more painful. But she had to get to the damned block one way or another. She was in too much pain to move and ended up getting pushed up against the wall by Wither Jesse. Once again, he just stood there pushing her against the wall. He opened his mouth. "Help me," he said. He then looked up at the wall. Petra looked as well to see that there was a clear path up to ledge that she could jump from to grab onto a wither tentacle and hit the command block for the last time. The only problem was, she was most likely not strong enough to do it, but it was probably the only way. She turned around and started to climb up the wall. She looked down at Wither Jesse, who was still standing where he was, taking his gloves off, revealing his pitch black hands. She kept on climbing up, even when arms and legs were almost limp. She eventually made it to the top, entirely worn out. All of a sudden Wither Jesse jumped on top of her again and started to tackle her. She managed to get out from underneath him, but to be met with a curtain death drop by the end of the ledge. She tried to get up, but her wither sickness seemed to be at its worst, plus the piece of flint in her stomach, so it would prevent her from accomplishing her goal. All of a sudden, someone from behind helped her up. "Forgive me for I need to kill you," said Wither Jesse, holding Petra tightly around her waist. "Why are you?" Petra's sentence was cut short by her screams of pain as a knife was cut down her back. Once there was a massive bleeding cut going all the way down her back. Wither Jesse kicked Petra in the back, launching her off the ledge and right towards the wither tentacles. As she got closer to them, she held out her left arm to grab onto one of the tentacles, and luckily, she made it. Blood started to spill out of her mouth as she held on. The pain was unbearable, but she had to stay latched to it in order to hit the command block. All of a sudden, Wither Jesse jumped onto the tentacle next to Petra's. "Jesse, fight the command block's control," exclaimed Petra. "I'm this close to saving you, don't turn on me now." "Shut up," Wither Jesse screamed as he lunged towards Petra, but he missed. Well, not entirely. He grabbed onto the visible skin on Petra's leg with his uncovered hand. The pain was getting even worse and her limbs were becoming even weaker as more purple veins started to go up her entire body. Blood started to come out of her nose and mouth as she started to rot away. It was getting harder to breathe, so she knew this was the last shot she would get at destroying the command block. "Jesse, I love you and this is all for you. I hope you can understand that." Petra threw the sword straight into the command block, blowing it up and killing the wither storms forever. The shockwave from the explosion threw Petra and Wither Jesse backwards, plummeting towards the massive hole underneath them. As she fell, Petra closed her eyes and smiled, knowing that she had done her part in the life of Minecraft. Jesse woke up, drowning in the middle of a lake near the crash site of the Wither Storm's debris. He swam to the top to see bedrock covering the ground everywhere. He pulled himself out of the lake and looked at his hands to see that they had turned back to normal. "I'm normal again," he said, a massive smile on his face. But the smile didn't last long, for the memories of what he did as Wither Jesse came back to him. When he killed the Order, killing innocent people, his friends. Petra, realizing what had happened, he jumped up onto his feet and started running around, his hands cuffed around his mouth. "Petra," he screamed at the top of his lungs, hoping for a reply. He looked up to see Lucas running towards him. "Lucas, "Where's Petra?" asked Jesse. Lucas didn't reply. He only punched Jesse in the stomach, making him fall to the ground. "You murderer," yelled Lucas, his face red with anger. "I'm normal again. I won't kill anyone," replied Jesse. "It's too late for that. You've already killed everyone but Axel and I." "Lucas, come here," yelled a familiar voice from over the small hill Lucas ran from. He ran back up the hill to join the source of the voice. As he ran up the hill, Jesse got up and followed him. Once he got up there, he saw Axel, Lucas, and Ruben all standing around, a sight Jesse would never think he would have done. "Jesse," exclaimed Axel, looking over at him, trying to smile. "Wait, you won't kill us, would you?" "No, no," yelled Jesse, tears starting to form in his eyes. "She stopped breathing a few seconds ago," said Axel. Petra was laying there in a pool of blood. Jesse fell to his knees next to her head. "What have I done?" he mumbled through his tears. His hand shook as she pulled the body onto his lap. Please don't let this be real," he said. "I need to tell you how I feel." "Jesse, it's too late," said Lucas. "You killed her. You killed everyone." Ruben came over and snuggled up next to Jesse, trying to comfort him. "She released me from the C command block," said Jesse, holding her tighter, "and I awarded her W with D death." He couldn't speak anymore, for he was too sad to continue talking. "She's a hero," Lucas said. "Even when she knew her life was almost up, she volunteered to go up into the storm anyway. I think everyone you killed needs a proper funeral. Maybe on the day Minecraft celebrates the Witherstorm's death," suggested Axel. "Yeah, starting with Petra," Jesse replied, wiping away his tears. "Goodbye and farewell, my hero. R.I.P. Petra, beloved friend and heroine. When you don't succeed now, then succeed later than originally planned." The 13th of October, 2015. The 22nd of December, 2015. Sob, cry, oh, sob, oh, cry. Sorry if I butchered the feels value of that ending entirely, but you can't blame me for being born a boring monotone robot voice that's forced to be trapped in the hard drive of some fancy computer. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you managed to watch this worthless video all the way to the end, congratulations, you deserve a medal, and I sure hope that Jack comes back from America soon, because I am clearly the worst at entertaining you people and I literally didn't rehearse for this at all. All I did was just read shit off of Microsoft Word, XD. A link to the audiobook version of this will also be in the description if you want to listen to my bland ass voice on the go for whatever reason. Please like, comment and subscribe for more Daniel free content.